When I think about Sylvania, the following terms come to mind: quality of life, outstanding public education, and safety. My parents worked extremely hard to be the first children in their families to attend and earn their way through college. They very purposely moved to the city of Sylvania to provide a better life for themselves and their family. I attended Sylvania Public Schools from kindergarten through my senior year of high school. From marching band and symphonic band to the symphony orchestra and extracurricular high school Broadway musical productions, my involvement in the Sylvania music programs positively helped me shape me into the person I am today. Growing up, downtown Sylvania was always cute, safe, but it wasn't necessarily vibrant. My friends and I would frequently ride our bikes from our neighborhood, Woodstream Farms, to downtown, with Rite Aid and TCBY yogurt being the highlights of our bicycle trips. While downtown was completely intact with little or no vacancies, it wasn't a there. It did not offer a destination experience. Fast forward 20 plus years later, Eric Wopser, the city manager of City of Sandusky, and I were keynote speakers at a conference in Northwest Ohio. Bill Sanford, Economic Development Director for the City of Sylvania, was at that conference. We connected, and after a few meetings and rounds of interviews with the mayor and city council, our team and environmental design group has had the pleasure of working with the City of Sylvania on their current downtown master plan update. It is such an amazing and fulfilling experience to be able to professionally work on a master plan for the city that helped raise you. Downtown Sylvania has transformed into a vibrant downtown that offers restaurants, including an amazing 5-star restaurant, breweries, art galleries, boutiques, and coffee shops. I love that it has a Dora, designated outdoor refreshment area, and Friday night art walks. Through great leadership and creative thinking over the past 20 plus years, downtown Sylvania has become a destination, and the community continues to be a great place to live, work, raise a family, and visit. Sylvania is and always will be a special place to me. Now, when I think about the city of Sylvania, in addition to the quality of life, outstanding public education, and safety, I also think of Sylvania as a thriving city, and I am proud to call it my hometown.
Well, hi, I'm Lindsay Stow. I am a councilwoman for the city of Sylvania. I was just elected and started office in January, and this has been quite a year to start my public service, but I've been very happy to be where I am and glad to be able to contribute to the city.
My name is Craig Stow, and I am the mayor of the city of Sylvania. I have been for more than 20 years, and it is a part-time position. And I spend about a third of my time on it. My profession is architect, and I've participated both at the local and the state American Institute of Architects levels. And I try to bring those skills to each of the other organizations as I move forward. And I think it proves beneficial for both of my main jobs at the moment.
Yes, my name is Bill Sanford. I'm Director of Economic Development for the City of Sylvania. I've been in this position for 10 years now, and I report directly to our mayor, Mayor Stow.
So for someone that has never been to Sylvania before, can you describe your community to them?
Sylvania is a first-ring suburb of the city of Toledo. We're on the northwest corner of Toledo, and our boundary corporate lines do not actually touch. Sylvania was established back in the 1860s. We became a home rule charter city in 1960, and slowly Toledo has been growing west to us. However, we're surrounded by Sylvania Township, which is the unincorporated part of our area. The city is the incorporated part. The city is actually a part of Sylvania Township. We have never conformed our boundaries. So Sylvania is thought of as both the city and the township. We have almost 50,000 people between the two. And even though I'm only the mayor of about 40% of those people, I think every one of them thinks I'm their mayor and calls me whenever there's an issue.
So when we talk about thriving cities, I think downtown Sylvania is definitely considered one. What do you feel makes downtown Sylvania so special?
Sylvania downtown is an old downtown, and it's not very big. It's only 3 blocks long or so, and has not sprawled out or been infilled with much newer construction. We have different commercial strips in the neighborhood, like Monroe Street, but Main Street is not a main artery for people going and coming to work, and as such is still quaint. But 20 or 25 years ago, it was also a truck route, and the buildings on it were not being used to their highest and best potential. One of it was an auto parts store. We had tire storage going on in there. There was other warehouse space in some of these nice buildings. And the city began a process under the previous mayor back in the 1980s that we've continued through the 90s and up until now, of making it more desirable for smaller businesses to come in and eateries to come in, and to make it more of a destination with a fall festival and with Memorial Day parade and with other Friday night art walks. We're trying to make it a destination, and because of all the new businesses and new ideas and younger people that have gotten involved, it's quite popular downtown. Even during COVID, we still have active Friday night art walks the first Friday of every month. So Sylvania downtown is just a nice, easy, comfortable place to come. So much so that we're starting to worry about construction around it. We need this study to help us build it in the right way, but we have a big apartment complex, very high-end luxury of over 200 apartments that's going to be opening up this year at the fringe of that. And that's because people want to live in downtown Sylvania. We're great. It's wonderful that they want to live there, but let's not destroy it by bringing all these people in too close.
Yeah. With that, what factors do you feel make downtown Sylvania successful? I know you mentioned that you have some new young folks that are, participating as stakeholders and things like that. But really, what are those, especially for, other people listening in that maybe feel like their downtown is on the cusp? Like, what are we doing in Sylvania that actually is setting the city apart and setting downtown apart as a thriving city?
I think it is the variety of activities that have enough participation to make it an interesting place to be. It used to be that we'd had 1 or 2 retail shops, and it wasn't quite enough to bring in people to buy lunch and to spend time shopping without something else going on. And now we have more restaurants in place, more of those shops, and more services that perhaps not just the wife and her friends, but the husband could come along and find something to do. We have a fishing specialty shop where they can arrange trips for you or give you tips on proper fishing equipment and techniques. We used to have a baseball card shop downtown. There's a computer store downtown. There's just enough variety of activities to give us the synergy necessary to make it an interesting place to be. And we have 3 art studios downtown. I didn't know those would be as influential as they've been, but they bring in a lot of people. I'm pleased by that, and they are bringing along with them a different culture of people who are interested in the physical appearance and quality of life of these buildings, and they've done it with public art, and that is desirable to other people as well. Chamber of Commerce is very active. We have a historical village downtown that we had started 25 years ago. Our first downtown plan was to mimic a mall, and we put a hotel at one end to serve as a mall department store, and we put the historical village up at the other end. They both served their purpose. They brought reason for people to locate into the downtown, but that village brings people, surprisingly number of people as well. And we've actually rented some of the spaces out that are a part of the village. We have a 5-star, the only 5-star restaurant in Northwest Ohio participate or in business right in downtown Sylvania. Not in our main block, they're in our second block. And they bring people in from miles around.
Tell us about the importance of planning and economic development and, being proactive in your community as it relates to a successful downtown and kind of the continuation of Sylvania as a thriving city.
Well, first with the downtown, and it's definitely the focal point of our community, and people identify with Sylvania as a combination of the city and the township, which is about 50,000 population. So it's a fairly big area, and probably the largest combined metropolitan area in the greater Northwest Ohio around the city of Toledo. And everyone in the greater Sylvania area then thinks of our downtown as their downtown. And it was tired, say 10 years ago, and that's when I noticed that some of the building owners were making investments to improve their buildings, and you could see a real change as because 15 years ago you could not get a cup of coffee in downtown Sylvania. I mean, it really was not that type. It wasn't inviting. It wasn't really, I think, meeting the need, and it was missing on its potential. And that was a lot when I started and went going to meetings and picking up on some of that, as that there was definitely some interest into doing more with our downtown.
So those original initiatives that you saw, was that something that was led by the city? Is that something that you really saw kind of a grassroots effort of the business owners really kind of doing that on their own? Is that something that there was a partnership that went hand in hand? I guess for those original, obviously there's a snowball effect, right? So once we see other people next door to us start improving, then we start improving our storefront, and the next door neighbor starts improving. But how did that start? Especially for advice for other communities that might be listening to this, how do you get that snowball rolling?
I think it's a combination. You've got to have leadership, and I think that was something that from the mayor's office, we wanted to do more. And I think with my position was that it was a new position for the city of Sylvania. So I thought that was a step to make that investment. And between the mayor and city council, there was definitely some interest. And you look at other communities and what could we be doing? But then you have to have buy-in. You've got to have buy-in from the owners, the property owners, and then the probably the most pivotal thing that happened for us is that our Downtown Sylvania Association was formed, and it was like before you have a formal organization, it's like whoever has the loudest voice or that they seem to be the leaders because they're the only ones talking. So by forming an association and working together and developing a plan of that was one plan, that was something that everyone could buy into. I think that was key, and that really helped get things moving.
Great. So I guess, why do you love downtown Sylvania? What is it now? Fast forward 10, 15 years later, what does downtown Sylvania have that just makes it so special to you?
Well, it's changing, and I think it's a comfort level. It's we want it to be attractive. We want it to be a destination, and I think we're on the road to doing that. Why we reached out to environmental design was we were changing, and probably the biggest thing and I mentioned earlier, the SOMO development. We found a developer. We had a lot of different concepts and ideas for it, and we in city council went with the apartment complex, the SOMO Flats, that that's near completion, will be completed in 2021. But it's something, it's a once in a lifetime development opportunity. It's a $35 million investment. It's 206 apartments. It's people living downtown. And I would say that the proponents, the people who came in and pitched it to us, they were right. There was some pent up demand of people to live near, what we have in our downtown. And with other developments I see around the country, people are building places that have shopping, a mixed use shopping, apartments. We already have that. It's smaller, but we wanted to add in what things are telling us by getting more people in that walkable community feel. That is key. And now with this change in this addition to our downtown, what should we be ready for? What's the next step? So that's where we're at right now.
So would you say that the SOMO development was really the catalyst that led the city of Sylvania to decide to create a downtown master plan? Because, one apartment complex, obviously 206 upscale units is substantial, but downtown is obviously a lot more than that. So what led you and the mayor and council to kind of really take those next steps?
Well, there's always a lot of plans, and you hear people talk about, you have plans, and it's kind of putting them all together and moving it to that next step. And sometimes people think plans are you're putting together the Christmas toy, and you follow step 1, step 2, and that's not what it is. It's more of a guiding way with development. I think the worst thing that you want to see happen as from a government standpoint, when somebody buys a property and because of the zoning or whatever, and all of a sudden something's in the middle of your downtown that you didn't want, and then government's faced with, how did you let that happen, kind of a thing. So I think the goal is to be on top of it, and that's what I think the community really is embracing, what it once was, say maybe in the 50s and whatever, and to bring that kind of a feel back. And I really sense a desire for that to happen.
What factors do you feel are really, contributing towards downtown Sylvania as we're looking from 2020 into 2021, and we kind of have this notion of hope, where I think finally we're feeling like we can see the light at the end of the tunnel? Sylvania has been a thriving city through this, but also I do think there's a lot of momentum going on. And what factors are you seeing really driving that home and continuing to build on the success of downtown Sylvania?
Well, I have to say, I think the top thing is the business owners we have downtown. We have a number of both smaller and a little bit larger business owners that have invested in downtown and have for a long time, and new people who are coming in to invest. And by having many different business owners and many different properties, what that allows is an enrichment, variety, and also a resiliency to our downtown. So if anything should happen to one, there's others that are able to adapt differently than that one might have been able to. And so I think there is a built-in strength in having a downtown that supports multiple stakeholders in it. And then also the business owners themselves are so open and giving and supportive of the community, to where they often work with different community organizations, such as we have a Downtown Sylvania Association. And that's where a number of our downtown businesses work together to help. They've created a Redbird Arts District, and we have regular Friday night art events and shopping events and food events. And that has brought a lot of energy to our downtown. And there's also, we have Sylvania Arts, which is a local nonprofit arts commission, and they've created a lot of art pieces downtown with murals and over our electrical boxes, they've put art on those. And we also have a large Maple and Main Arts and Music Festival in the summer that brings a lot of energy and visitors to downtown. And then we have Heritage Sylvania, which has our historical village and our history museum downtown, and that brings another layer of fun and knowledge and groundedness from knowing some of the history of Sylvania and its involvement in the Underground Railroad. And then we also have a really thoughtful and responsive government, so that when business owners, organizations, or neighbors have ideas for things, the people who sign the permits and make things happen are often wanting to work to see what we can do, but making sure we do it in a way that's safe and fair to all. And I think that having people in those spots who are willing to listen and willing to try something a little different makes a big difference in bringing energy and ideas and once again, that sort of testing nature to our downtown to kind of see what sticks, when something's thrown against a wall, you want to see what is going to stay and what's going to fall. And you can only do that by trying. And then also, I think one more thing that really makes our downtown strong is the fact that it's right next to a few neighborhoods and some really great neighbors. There's this wonderful area where you can walk to the downtown. You don't even have to get in a car, and then even ride your bike. There's a number of neighborhoods that aren't too far from there that they're able to just quickly go downtown, grab a cup of coffee, or go take a walk down the street and see what's new in the shop, and be able to just have a nice trip outside without needing to get into a car or needing to worry about a parking space. And with our bike trail, that makes it a lot easier for people from a little bit farther away to come closer. And we're also really close to one of our high schools, so there's a nice connection there between our university, one of our high schools, and our downtown area, and being able to reach people of all ages.
That's fantastic, and especially something as small and yet significant as wrapping electrical boxes. You think about that effort, and yet what effort actually did go into that and the lasting impact of that. Are you familiar at all with any of the funding that went into some of those, dynamic programs that was obviously a very targeted effort, right? It's just getting all of the utility boxes throughout town. But are you familiar with that funding or kind of the initiatives that the different organizations took to move in that direction? I guess more as just letting other communities understand, how those types of initiatives got their feet and got their legs and kind of took off.
I'm a bit familiar. So from the city side, we have built into our budget a certain amount of money that we approve each year to go towards community funds. And so we have certain organizations that we support, and we have a certain amount that we give. And if it needs to change, we ask each year for a justification for what they need and what it would go towards. So that's part of where some of these organizations get their funding. But then I can also say from my time on the Sylvania Arts Commission is that there's also a lot of fundraising that happens and sponsorship. So what happens with the city funding often helps make sure that we have that base we need to be able to not spend all of our time focused on fundraising and actually get to create art events and art education and art installations across the city. But then when there's specific projects, I think the electrical boxes might have been funded through a special sponsorship from local businesses, but it also might have been something that we used from our general funds from fundraising and from the city support.
So it sounds like we have line items in the general fund that are meant to serve as that snowballing build off of budgetary fundraising, kind of as a base layer, basically.
Yeah.
Cool. So the city is taking a very proactive approach to build off of the momentum of SoMo, which is a 206 unit high-end apartment complex anchored right in downtown Sylvania. So I know that is a catalyst project, obviously, and the city was very proactive in getting that. But that being said, how is that really impacting the notion of the city being proactive? I feel that from what I understand of the project is that the city came together and really sought out for that property that was accumulated, making sure that the right use with the right feel, the right materials was in there. But then moving into the notion of the master plan and wanting to understand how SoMo fits into downtown, fits into the future of downtown and where Sylvania needs to go. Help us understand what that looked like for the city and the notion of being proactive. And especially that's something that we really do like to talk about, that when a community is being proactive versus reactive, how much more control that actually gives you on the decision making. But what does that look like for you and for downtown Sylvania, your lens as a councilwoman?
Yeah, so Sylvania is in a very energetic stage right now. We have a lot of momentum built behind us, and something that can be dangerous when you're in that spot is you might catch the attention of something that maybe doesn't line up with the long-term vision that the residents might have in mind for the city. And we have the luxury and the foresight in Sylvania to try to look ahead to make sure that we're setting ourselves up for success. Because you can never predict the future. You never know if what this energy is going to last, but you can do your best to make sure that you're going to be able to go where you want. And so I think with this master planning session and with we've done them in the past. I haven't been around. This is still my first year, but I know that the city's had master plans about every, I think it's 10 years or so, and they've done that for the last few decades. And it was time to do one again. And it happens to line up with just such a key time for our town and for, Northwest Ohio in general, and even in general for the Midwest. I mean, there is an across the board re-energization that's happening. And we want to be there and ready as more opportunities become available. And we want to have responses ready when opportunities come to us as well, to know whether or not already it works for our residents and our community. Because government in general it can be a pretty slow process. Mm-hmm. And there's some give and takes with that, but in general, one of the benefits for things moving a little bit slower with the city is that it helps ensure that we aren't just catching on to fads and trends or things that really don't last for the never-ending game that is a city, right? A city never ends. We have to be able to plan for 50 to 100 to who knows how long into the future. And by moving slower, we can be more thoughtful in those responses. But we also don't want to be so slow that when an opportunity comes along, we aren't ready for it. And so by preparing in this manner, it means that we've already taken the time and done the research and talked to the people to know that when things come along, we know how to answer for it. And then also we know what to seek out if there's anything in particular that we're looking for. So we're setting ourselves up for success, and we are making sure that we have done the vetting and the preparation necessary to be able to do everything we can to keep this momentum and growth and energy working for Sylvania and working in our favor.
Did anything surprise you about the plan, whether it was the plan itself or actually the results of the market analysis in particular, just looking at, how impactful SOMO and those 206 units are going to be, and especially the extra capacity in residents and retail? Was there anything that you were like, oh, this is unique?
Well, yes. I think the thing that stood out the most to me was that when we had our last public input hearing, when we were presenting the last, I think it was the final draft of the master plan, and we had the online presentation and there was a chance for polling. I remember being just struck by the fact that there were so many times when in that polling, there was just a very clear winner, a clear choice that was collectively moved towards by almost everyone in the meeting. And it really struck me how there is this collective sense of a direction that seems to be maybe not specifically spoken, but kind of understood. And that polling really represented that collective idea of where we're hoping Sylvania as a whole and downtown Sylvania could go. I've loved through this process seeing your professional take on Sylvania. So, I mean, I already know this is a great town. There's a reason why I've decided to come back here and live here and hopefully spend, forever here. But to be able to have some of the data and the language that you guys have used throughout this, and to show us similarly how this equation of where we are now can play out and what that kind of puts us on as a staging place for what comes next has been particularly just striking to me of being able to, I don't know, see the potential of our city. Well, not only see the potential, but see how great we already are, but through a different set of eyes.
So you mentioned art walks, which is definitely something that is really exciting, knowing that there's a DORA in place with that. With the success of downtown and knowing your background as an architect, if you were to have to assign percentages, how much of the success in downtown has to do with programming versus how much do you think has to do with infrastructure?
I think programming is probably more important than the infrastructure. The infrastructure can be an obstacle to the programming, and which is first, the chicken or the egg. But I think having some infrastructure attracted programming. People wanted to invest in the downtown and have these programs, but they would make do with whatever they had to. They would find a way, I think, to make it work. Though as they have their programs, we can do more of the infrastructure. So both have improved over the time, but I think attracting the investors and the cultural people who want to have the programming is probably more important than the infrastructure. The infrastructure will catch up. And once those people move in, they camp out on city council's front doors if they have to get what they want. And they all come to the mayor then. So the system works. They go hand in hand, but the system in Sylvania has worked. And fortunately, we have the financial ability to be proactive rather than just knee-jerk reacting to problems. Like the study that we're doing with your firm. That's the third one we've done. You're the third firm that's done this for us. We do one every decade or so. We try to look forward enough, but none of them have a crystal ball. They give us a direction, saying, well, if you do this, you might attract these sorts of people. You might have success doing this, or you might get funding this way. But it always unfolds in a different way than you would expect. And the 3 art galleries downtown were not programmed into the previous studies. They didn't say, go find art galleries to come downtown. But they came and they live down there, and they've done wonderful things for our downtown. And they are the direct originators of the Friday night art walks, which are more than art walks. They are activity nights. They are social gatherings. But they were put together by the art gallery.
So it's interesting you said being proactive. I guess my next question I'd like to ask you is just, especially with your architectural background, tell us about the importance of planning, economic development, and being proactive in your community and how it relates to successful downtown. You mentioned proactive versus reactive, and that's something that we always push, of just having a champion that can be just, even if it's just a half a step ahead, not even a full step ahead. Being proactive is so important. So why is that important to your community? And I guess what other advice would you give to other communities to kind of, especially those that are reactive, to kind of be able to make that shift and get ahead of the game a little bit?
Creativity and good ideas are a valuable asset, and they don't necessarily come from elected officials or the head of the Chamber of Commerce, whose job it is to come up with that. We've had a way, and we're going to continue to do it, of allowing people to have input with ideas to improve our downtown, and to have enough courage on city council to put a few dollars into those programs has made all the difference. I don't think that you can lead a downtown from the top. You really do need to have people saying, gee, if you just help me out a little bit, I can do this. And that has worked out very well for us. I told you that we never had the idea of having Friday night art walks or art galleries. That came from elsewhere. They're not elected officials. They had a good idea. The DORA was the same way. None of the elected officials were saying, let's have public drinking downtown, because there were people that were against that, no doubt about it. But there was enough courage in our part-time elected officials to do that. Maybe Sylvania has an advantage in that nobody is a professional career politician in town at all. I told you earlier that I'm a part-time elected official, not a career politician. I'm an architect at heart. That's true of everybody on our city council. Now, we may have some retired people on it, but they are not looking to their next career job. They're trying to do what's right for the community, not what's right for their political careers. And so the courage is there to try and do something now. And fortunately, they will band together, listen to an investor or listen to some volunteers or listen to a service organization with a bright idea and find a way to help them do it. Not spend all dollars doing it. I've also learned that question the hard way. You don't fund everything. If it's important to get done and if people want to do it, we'll help. We won't pay the whole bill. And that's worked out pretty well for us. When we selected your firm to work on our master plan, it also came with the promise that you would help us find additional tax dollars, tax incremental financing or grants or that to help us with it. Mm-hmm. And I'm beginning to hear the beginning of that, but that's so important to be able to leverage local tax funds to find a way to get some of this done. Yep. We do it on our infrastructure all the time. We have grants from the state of Ohio that pay half of our road improvements or some of our water improvements or sanitary sewer improvements or bridge repairs. We're doing that very well right now. But we need to do it with the downtown atmosphere as well. We need to find a way that the taxpayers are not on the hook for doing all this. Yes, we'll put our share in, but I'd much rather go to the public and say, hey, we're putting in a third of the money and we've got another third from this group and a third from this group, and what a sale to get this done. It's a 2/3 off sale and we can have this in our downtown. Mm-hmm. That kind of funding research is very important. And I'm looking forward to what you're going to produce for us, Michelle.
You mentioned a little bit about involvement. Talk about the importance of stakeholder and public involvement, I guess not just with your updated master plan process, but just in general. How does Sylvania approach the stakeholder and public involvement process? And, do you feel like it makes an impact on the project and on the community as it relates to, I guess, being able to be heard? And especially as you just mentioned, I think you kind of quasi answered the question of, how does the administration and council and yourself kind of react to those requests and people's ideas? And, what does that look like as it relates to outside involvement above and beyond staff and elected officials?
I'm going to approach that question that we are not having to respond to emergencies, whether financial or social problems, all the time. We do have the advantage of having enough time to look and plan and fund improvements to the community. And sometimes the problem is then, well, what's the next good idea that we're going to pursue? There's always people that have good ideas, and some of them will come to city council or come to the mayor and talk about it. And we need to listen to those, and city council does have the time to do it. You go to a larger, maybe it's because we're a smaller community and we're all part-time elected officials, but you go to the bigger communities, they're so wrapped up in making sure the trash gets picked up and making sure the police are properly governed and are not doing things they shouldn't do and not trying to get a tax passed or not having drug problems on the street. We're very fortunate not to have all those problems. And because of that, my administrations have always been quality of life oriented. When I go out, and I don't go out very often to speak to groups, I talk about the quality of life. The groups I talk to the most are students that when I first became mayor were in elementary school, now they're parents. And some of them say they remember me saying when asked that the most important people in Sylvania are the students, because you are the product that we make here. We don't make glass in Sylvania. We don't make Jeeps here, though maybe their parents work in those industries. We make young people and a great place to live. And so that gives that positive image that you want about your community. This is a great place for families, but it also means we want to hear from you. We want to know what your ideas are. What do you think we should be doing? And some people step forward. A lot of people will just say, well, okay, maybe, maybe not. But a few were outright complaining, like we did on the DORA. We can't do that. But we did put people on the committee, the DORA committee. We put a minister on that committee. We put a nearby resident, not just the bar owners, not just the downtown people. And we found a way to set up the rules and then to limit it after a year if we had to. And that just slipped by the way. The sunset provision on the DORA just slid by everybody. It was working. So we didn't need to shut it down after 12 months. But we patiently went about it. I remember when it was brought to me, and in a city council meeting, I wrote down 5 steps that we needed to do it. And I could have done it with my administration in 30 days. It took city council 8 months to get it going, but it's because they had all the community meetings. They let everybody talk and they came up with some better ideas. They still addressed those 5 logistical steps, but they softened it. And they also allowed people to buy into it. The buy-in time is very important. And allowing people to think, hey, that was my idea. I can't tell you how important that is. If you push something on somebody, then you're being oppressive. But if you let them say, wait, why don't we do this? All of a sudden there's buy-in and we should do more of this. And why aren't you doing this? This is kind of going around the block here on you, but that's how you get people involved. And there are always interested people.
I think some of the success of that too, when you talk about, what you are dealing with and how you're blessed for the things that you are dealing with versus not dealing with. I think that does go back to the proactiveness. When you have the attitude of being proactive about things, sometimes maybe things that could be negative just take care of themselves and you're able to deal with what I would consider more of the fun stuff,
I don't know if the negatives take care of themselves, but you don't make it the primary focus.
Right.
If you don't take care of it, they'll cause a problem. But you move on. My job as mayor is to try to look 10 years in the future and figure out where I think this community should be 10 years in advance. And fortunately, most of my city council members have that same frame of mind. They're not worried about the election. This is an election year. They're not so worried about that. They don't have to be.
Let's talk about the importance of just obviously proactiveness, which we talked about a little bit. You're an architect by trade, so a lot of this kind of overlaps with the notion of the proactive planning, the notion of having economic development being a focus of the city, not just now, but in the future. And I guess kind of using these elements to maybe give other communities advice as to whether it's a brand new downtown that they don't have a there like Sylvania does, and that we need to create that town center, or maybe like Sylvania was 15, 20 years ago, that we have good bones, but need to build on that momentum. How does the planning and the economic development and kind of this envisioning exercise really promote downtown Sylvania and creating a successful downtown, not just in your community, but maybe speaking to others, whether it's Northwest Ohio or even the state in general? What does that look like and what advice can you give?
So if I were to give any advice to other communities who are looking to take the next step for their town, I would say to try not to get overwhelmed. There's a lot of things that can be done, and it can feel a bit overwhelming at times because you probably have this amazing vision in your head of what you want to have happen. But like everything, you've got to just kind of take it one step at a time. See what the next smallest thing you can do is and move towards that. And it might just be calling a meeting for some residents to gather and to talk about what they're seeing. Or it could be, hosting an event downtown. Or maybe it's just recording and seeing how people are already using the space or are using the space in other parts of the city, but maybe could be brought together and create this, this hotspot in the middle of your town. But I think in the end, it's about finding what that next smallest step would be for you. And they'll all build up, right? The little things matter. and the little things add up to equal big things in the long run. So if you're not at the point where you can, revitalize what you already have, if you're looking at a brand new thing, or if you have nothing and you just have little pieces, finding the answer that's just right for you and making sure that you're kind of asking the right questions and bringing on the right professionals and making sure you're reaching out to a good cross section of your community so that it doesn't just represent a small bit, but really your community as a whole.
For a community that's just really starting out and taking those first steps into redeveloping their downtown, what advice would you give them as they take those first steps to move things forward?
A representative from the city, and a lot of times that's me, but we have all our staff get involved, has to have a connection with the stakeholders and working hand in hand, and you get this message that you're working together. Whereas what I walked into a little bit, that there were other entities that it was easy to blame the city when things didn't go the way they thought they were going to go. And I was kind of like, oh, wait a minute, that's not a fair assessment or what's actually happening. But you got to jump in and show what you can do, and then kind of put it more into a group dynamic and how it can work. And I think I think most of the people understand that's what we're doing. We're working together to do what's best for the community.